I woke up. I don't remember what happened last night. Just know the time was head. I'm about to go to the ocean.
This is 25-year-old Kelsey Ellum, a young transgender woman from the St. Louis area whose life was taken inside her own home by her own man because of a revealed secret. On the night of April 24, 2025, just before 11:15 p.m., police were called to a residence on the 5800 block of Grace Avenue in Afton, Missouri, following reports of a domestic disturbance and a gunshot. When officers arrived, they found Kelsey suffering from a gunshot wound inside the home. She was rushed to the hospital, but she did not survive. Just hours earlier, Kelsey had been visible, confident, and proud, sharing messages online about her transition, her growth, and the life she was building. But inside her own home, an argument ensued between her and her man, 21-year-old Martino Lewis, arguments that involved secrets he was trying to keep hidden. Not long after, Kelsey was on the floor fighting for her life. But before we get to that, we have to go back to the very beginning. This is the life and death of Kelsey Ellum.
I ain't gonna do too much, but I just want y'all to see if I was a stripper. I be like, come see me at Roxy's Hobby. Come see me at Blondie's.
Kelsey Ellum was born on November 5, 1999 in Atlanta, Georgia, and by the time she was 25 years old, she had already lived through more self-discovery, resilience, and resistance than many people ever do. She was a young transgender woman who did not shrink herself to survive. She built a life with intention, pride, and an unwavering commitment to being seen as who she truly was. To her family, Kelsey was a light. Her older sister, Zira Moten, described her as someone who could change the energy in a room just by walking into it.
Hey Houston, you watching MTV? Cause yeah, bless the bottle, 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 bless the bottle. It was stupid.
To her mother, Calvinita Brock, Kelsey was generous to a fault, someone who gave without keeping score, someone who loved loudly and without apology. That love extended not just to family and friends, but to strangers, to people who needed help, to anyone who crossed her path carrying less than she did. But Kelsey's strength wasn't just emotional, it was practical. From a young age, she worked hard. She held retail jobs, including at Hollister, and took on responsibilities in food service, even working in management at McDonald's. She bought her own car. She secured her own apartment. She didn't wait for permission to build independence. She earned it. Every paycheck, every shift, every long day was a step towards stability in a world that often denies transgender women both safety and opportunity. And that's the part people often miss about Kelsey. She had ambition, but it wasn't loud. It was consistent. She also talked about wanting a career in healthcare, training toward becoming a medical assistant. On social media, she described herself as a caregiver, and the people who knew her best said that wasn't branding. It matched the way she lived. Kelsey helped people. According to her family, she would give money to people on the street without hesitation. She would check on friends who weren't doing well. She would show up for people who didn't always show up for her. And despite the barriers placed in front of her as a transgender woman, Kelsey didn't retreat. She stepped forward. She was open about her transition, proud of it. She shared her journey online, calling it epic, celebrating becoming herself in a society that so often punishes transgender women for visibility. She advocated for the trans community not through slogans, but through presence, by living openly, loving fully, and refusing to disappear. That openness mattered, and it also made her vulnerable. Because being a transgender woman doesn't just shape how the world treats you, it shapes the kinds of relationships you're pulled into and the kinds of dangers that can hide inside them.
I was so drunk last night, though. I don't even remember what happened. I know them them boys that was behind me in that video in the jacuzzi, them white boys, they something else. That's what I do know. Baby, I had a time last night. So I woke up this morning panicking like, what the like, I ain't no like, what I do? Who the I got in the shower with? I don't remember. That was just the time I had last night. I don't do that normally, but I just wanted to get wild. Oh, and I got wild. I woke up freaking the out. Like, y'all should have I'm thinking about this. Like, y'all should have sent me.
That's where a man would enter her life, a man who would change everything. That man was Martino Lewis. Martino Lewis was 21 years old, several years younger than Kelsey, and he was living in the St. Louis area. Public descriptions of his work were inconsistent, but accounts around him painted a picture of someone doing odd jobs and getting by in pieces. Cash transfers, small gigs, ride shares, whatever came next. He was not publicly known for a stable career. He wasn't publicly known for building anything long-term. But when he was around Kelsey, he had access to stability he didn't create. And at first, that kind of dynamic can look like love. Because when Kelsey loved, she didn't do it halfway. She fed him, she clothed him, she cooked, she supported, she carried the weight. And for a while, it could have felt like the two of them were building something together. Kelsey in motion, Martino along for the ride, and both of them young enough to believe that effort could fix whatever was missing. But love that's built on one person doing all the work doesn't stay romantic for long. And that's where the relationship begins to show its shape. People close to Kelsey said the connection between them wasn't peaceful. It wasn't steady. Her mother described it as constant arguing, an ongoing tension that never fully settled. And the arguments weren't framed as rare blow-ups. They were described as a pattern. The kind of relationship where you're always getting through it, always moving past it, always promising it'll be better next week. And that's the trap, because the relationship carried a fault line from the start. Martino did not want to be seen with her. According to Kelsey's family, he did not want his friends or relatives to know he was dating a transgender woman. He avoided public acknowledgement. He wanted the relationship private, not for safety, but for image. And that distinction matters, because secrecy, when it's one-sided, is erasure. Kelsey was not hiding who she was. She was becoming more visible, more confident, more proud. Martino, meanwhile, wanted access to her love without standing beside her in the light. He wanted the benefits of the relationship without the responsibility of claiming it. That imbalance began to define everything. Kelsey was building a future. Martino was consuming stability. But things are about to get worse. Over time, those arguments stopped being about the present and started being about everything the relationship carried underneath. Resentment grew, control issues surfaced, and fear, real fear, entered the picture. By April 2025, the relationship was no longer just strained, it was unstable. And the night of April 24th would become the moment when everything Kelsey had been holding together finally collapsed. Because behind closed doors, the tension that had been simmering for months was about to boil over, and when it did, there would be no way to undo what came next. As April 24, 2025 slipped into night, the house on the 5800 block of Grace Avenue in Afton, Missouri, sat quietly on a residential street that rarely drew attention. Afton, a small municipality in St. Louis County, is the kind of place where arguments are usually muffled behind the closed doors and sirens are uncommon. Nothing about the outside of that home suggested that within hours it would become the center of a homicide investigation. Inside, the atmosphere was already charged. The tension between Kelsey Ellum and Martino Lewis did not arrive suddenly that night. It had been building for months, layered through unresolved arguments, emotional imbalance, and the quiet strain of a relationship that never found stable ground. By the evening of April 24, the dynamic between them had reached a point where even routine disagreements carried an edge. As the evening came on Grace Avenue, that confidence was tested behind closed doors. What began as another argument escalated quickly. Voices rose and accusations resurfaced. The same unresolved issues that had defined the relationship returned again: control, secrecy, dependence, resentment. This was not unfamiliar territory for Kelsey, but this time the conflict moved beyond words. That shift marked the first irreversible turn. At some point during the argument, Martino Lewis struck Kelsey in the mouth with enough force to draw blood. The punch changed everything. What had been emotional volatility became immediate physical violence, and Kelsey recognized the danger for what it was. Right then, she acted. She called out to a nearby witness and told them to call 911. Her request was urgent, direct, and grounded in fear. Kelsey was specifically worried that Martino might try to get access to a gun she kept for protection. That detail reframed the situation entirely. This was no longer a heated argument that might cool down. This was a moment where Kelsey believed her life was at risk. The witness did not hesitate. But before the call even reached the authorities, a single sound changed everything. One gunshot rang out from inside the house. Kelsey was shot in her torso, and she immediately collapsed. But Martino did not stop there, because before the police got to the home, Martino ran to evade the police. And the worst thing was, he did not even check on Kelsey before he left. He did not call for help. Instead, he took Kelsey's black sedan and drove away from the scene, disappearing into the night streets of St. Louis County. By the time St. Louis County Police arrived at approximately 11:15 p.m., the situation inside the home had already crossed beyond rescue. Officers found Kelsey Ellum suffering from a gunshot wound inside her residence on Grace Avenue. Emergency medical responders rushed her to a nearby hospital, but despite their efforts, she was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. She was 25 years old. And just like that, the life Kelsey had fought to build, brick by brick, shift by shift, truth by truth, was over. But the night was far from finished. Because leaving the scene didn't erase what happened inside that bedroom. It only added another layer to what investigators would soon piece together. And it won't be long before justice would start to come to Kelsey's family's door.
Side investigation going on right now in Afton. What happened just after 11 last night in the 5800 block of Grace Avenue. Police say when they got to the scene, they found a woman. She died at the hospital. Police believe that happened after a fight with someone the woman knew.
Not long after the shooting, on the early morning hours of April 25, 2024, police located Martino Lewis in St. Louis City. He was still driving Kelsey's car when officers stopped him. He did not resist arrest. He did not deny that there had been a fight, but what he said next would immediately raise red flags. But when he was questioned about the shooting, he would tell a shocking version. Martino told a story that did not match the evidence. He claimed that Kelsey had been shot while they were driving and that he had taken her to the hospital. It was a version of events that fell apart almost instantly because the police had arrived at an entirely different scene. Moreover, the physical evidence inside the home on Grace Avenue told a different story. So did the witness who had heard the argument, seen the punch, and heard the gunshot while still on the phone with 911. The truth did not need interpretation. It was already there. And so, on the same day he was caught, Kelsey Ellum's death was officially being treated as a homicide. The St. Louis County Prosecuting Attorney's Office moved quickly. Less than 24 hours after the shooting, Martino Lewis was formally charged. The charges were severe. Martino Lewis was charged with second-degree murder in connection with Kelsey's death. He was also charged with armed criminal action for using a firearm during the commission of a felony, and third-degree domestic assault stemming from the physical attack that occurred before the shooting. These were not placeholder charges. They reflected what prosecutors believed the evidence would support in court. When bond was set, it underscored the gravity of the case. Martino Lewis was held on a $400,000 cash-only bond with no option to post a percentage. That condition ensured he would remain in custody unless the full amount was paid, something that rarely happens in cases of this magnitude. He was transferred to jail, where he would wait as the legal process began to unfold. But for Kelsey's family, the legal steps brought no immediate relief. Within days, her mother, Calvina Brock, was forced to do something no parent should ever have to do. She returned to the house on Grace Avenue to clear out the room where her daughter had been killed. In interviews, she described the experience with raw honesty: the blood, the damage, the physical reminders of violence left behind. It was not a symbolic act of closure. It was a necessity imposed by reality. And the pain did not end there.
Fighting for family. A tragic leaves one woman. Now her loved ones are keeping her name alive.
She was my world, my best friend.
It's still like a shocking to me, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm still like I'm in a dream.
Good evening, I'm Robert Townsend. Tonight a man is in jail after being charged in a deadly domestic disturbance in Afton. He's accused of killing a woman police say he was dating. New tonight, 5 on Your Side's Annie Kroll spoke with the victim's family about the legacy they know she's already leaving behind.
It's still like a shocking to me, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm still like I'm in a dream.
The new reality for Calvinita Brock after losing her youngest daughter, Kelsey Ellum. St. Louis County Police say just after 11 p.m. on Thursday, a fight between 21-year-old Martino Lewis and a woman he was in a romantic relationship with broke out in the 5800 block of Grace Avenue. Charging documents say an eyewitness overheard an argument on Thursday night, but it was Kelsey's family who says that escalated into the man they call Tino punching Kelsey so badly in the mouth, she started bleeding.
They always been arguing for some reason. I always stayed into it because my baby was she's a legend, she was trying to do her things, but this was one that she was always supporting, taking care of, helping. This a dude that she was doing all this stuff for, and this is what you did?
Right.
Documents say Kelsey was afraid Lewis was going to get her and asked a witness to call police. While he was on with 911, he heard a and saw Lewis run out of the house to drive away in Kelsey's car. Less than 48 hours later, Brock, who said the two were close friends, had to clean out the home her daughter was killed in.
All that blood and brains and whatever that's in her room, that was wow. That wasn't nothing about drop on the floor.
No.
Nothing.
Zoria Moten emphasizing how amazing her older sister was.
She can light up the room. She very playful. She funny. She outspoken. I can describe Kelsey in so many ways. She was just a lot. She was my world, my best friend.
Family said she was an advocate for the transgender community and was a consistent friend to strangers.
She'll take her shoes off her feet and get to a person.
Do it plenty of times.
You know,
every time we ride past the homeless, she always give everybody $1. She make sure you hungry. She just one of them type of persons that always looked out for everybody.
Annie Kroll, 5 on Your Side.
Now, if you'd like to help the family pay for funeral expenses, you can find a link to donate to their GoFundMe page in the As Seen on TV section of KSDK.com. The service is scheduled for May 9th. Lewis is being held tonight on a $400,000 bond.
Kelsey did not have life insurance. The family, already grieving, now faced the financial burden of funeral expenses. A GoFundMe campaign was launched to help cover the costs, and the response from the community was immediate. Donations poured in from people who knew Kelsey personally and from strangers who had learned her story and felt compelled to help. Soon enough, the focus shifted to saying goodbye. Kelsey Ellum's funeral service was scheduled for May 9, 2025 at Nash Home in East St. Louis. Friends, family, and members of the community gathered to honor a young woman whose life had been defined by generosity, resilience, and truth. Later, a candlelight vigil was held at MLK Riverside Park, offering a public space for grief, remembrance, and solidarity, especially within the transgender community that Kelsey so openly advocated for. But even as vigils were held and flowers laid down, the case itself was far from finished. Martino Lewis remained in custody as court proceedings moved forward. Prosecutors prepared their case, defense attorneys prepared theirs. The legal system began its slow, methodical work, motions, hearings, and future court dates stretching into the months ahead. And hanging over it all was a question that no charge sheet could fully answer. How did a relationship built on secrecy, imbalance, and quiet fear reach a point where it ended with a gunshot in a bedroom? That question would not be answered in a single hearing or a single verdict. It would be examined piece by piece through testimony, evidence, and the stories left behind by the people who knew Kelsey best. Because while the courts determine what happens to Martino Lewis, the truth remains unchanged. Kelsey Ellum should still be alive. What do you think about it? Let us know what you think in the comments below. And if you found this story intriguing, please like, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this.